All right. Very good. Well, so welcome to session 8. One more. 8 out of 12, almost there. So this is number 8 of our 12. But this one's a little bittersweet. Because as most of you probably know, Ashley's accepted a different position, which is really a great gift, for a great opportunity for her extensive toolbox of knowledge, skills, and ability. And she's really been a driving force behind getting us serious up and going. Her and I've been great to work with. So, but her attitude, the will of attitude, fun to be around Peter. It's gonna be fun to be around. Exceptional marketing prowess has been critical to any type of success we might have. So for me personally, and from all the folks who attend this session, thank you for your time and commitment. I think and the mark of any good leaders, leave it better found it, and I think you can feel like that. So we do have a couple of small tokens of appreciation. Okay. so the first one is this one. So it's this little gold area. This little gold coin. This is yours. And this is what it represents these things: leadership, strength, determination, and inspiration, all of which are important leadership qualities that you possess. And hope we remind you as the positive difference you made in your time here at Oakland. And the other one, as you embark on the next stage of your career, some decision situations could be more challenging than others, as you might expect. So, but this gift is for those decisions and situations that might be a little easier than others. So everybody needs an easy button. So when you're done, you go. So you can have that. For when you make those decisions that are a little easier than someone, now you got an easy button. It'll help you along the way. So like, but like any good celebration, I think you have to have goodies along the way. So what better way to celebrate than with Hawkeye cupcakes?
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's what these are.
Big cupcake.
Hawkeye cupcakes.
Sorry for everyone that's online.
We'll send you a virtual cupcake. We'll send you a virtual cupcake somewhere. So we can take us and pass it around and I see that napkins or something.
Yeah.
I didn't think that.
We've got stuff.
I didn't think that far ahead. So really, so wish you continued success in the next chapter, and we know you continue to do great things. So
Well, thank you.
of course, we gotta. I mean,
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that. And she made them. She was afraid to make them black. It would give people black teeth when they ate them. That's what she made, you know. And then your mind is like black teeth. So, but she tried to think about those things.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
As she made it, I go, that's fine. So yeah, I've been virtual coffee or something for people who are. So there's like chocolate, there's vanilla and marble. That's the word on the street. Okay. Okay, so let's run into our topic for this month, I think. So we're really fortunate to have Jim Chitwood with us today. I've known him, we go way back. Actually, Jim was the guy that hired me at Ashford in about 2006. This is when he hired me. And to this day, he still asks me one of the most interesting interview questions I've ever been asked, and it was, why shouldn't I hire you? Which really led to the reason is really why I should hire you, is why is how he answered it. So, I mean, so my answer was this, so it must have been okay because you hired me, but so it's about, if you're looking for a guy who's just gonna accept the status quo, not ask questions, move things forward, if that's the person that you're looking for, I'm not your guy. So the reason you shouldn't hire me is the very reason you should have hired me. So it worked out. So I have a lot of respect for Jim, and he's done great things. So a bit about Jim's background in today's topics about employee recognition, which I think is critical. And it's not one of those kind of touchy-feely, nice to do things. It's really a strategic thing you need to do to retain, motivate, and engage employees. Okay. So Jim is a doctorate in organizational leadership and a build on many of the principles he learned in the Army, solidifying his belief that the power of the team dictates the outcome. Using these principles in over 2 decades of professional life showed that the performance team, the team that strives for perfection and positive outcome, will always outperform the partner of individuals striving to outcompete one another. His research, he's done lots of research, and he loves the saying, as he says, cliche as it might be, is that teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, so he's got bachelor, master, and doctoral courses in strategic change management, coaching and supervising employees, organizational leadership, organizational education, organizational behavior, change management, and has over 20 years of extensive experience starting organizations, departments, and completing turnaround organizations. He likes to say he has the DNA of a salesperson and the mind of an operations expert. And I've seen this operations side of him, so he is really good at operations. So I've seen that in action in the past. And I think he believes that the core of the systems and processes can be implemented to create a performance culture, which is really what it's all about. So it's my honor to welcome Dr. Jim Chipwood and present on today's topic about employee recognition. Jim, it is all yours, and thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. It's my pleasure. Am I able to share? Well, we'll find out, won't we?
You should be able to look.
You confirm you can see this?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right, let me get this out of my way. Bear with me a sec. All right, resize and reformat. Okay. I'm not in my normal layout, so I've got to figure out these additional screens. All right, pleasure, everybody. Thank you, Charlie, for that great introduction. What we're going to discuss today comes out of my book. It's called Leadership is Not Enough, which you would think a person with a doctorate in leadership would never tell you that it's not about leadership. I will argue all day long that yes, leadership's important, but if you haven't built an operational foundational level that supports performance and an employee productivity, anything you do at the leadership level is irrelevant. You really have to start with a great foundation. And so in my book, I posit a new model for performance called TRACK. It stands for training, recognition, accountability, and communication. In this session and our next, we're going to talk about two of my favorites, which are recognition and communication. So let's dig in. Let's dig into the first one, which is we're here to discuss is recognition. If I could get this to move, we'd be all right. All right, so
Jim, the one screen's kind of over the top of your slides.
oh, is it? Okay, that's what I was wondering. Hold on.
Yeah.
Are you
That's
better?
better. Perfect.
Let me get this thing out of my way now. Cool.
That's perfect.
Is it still over there on your screen?
Nope, it's all good.
Interesting, the way it just layered it. Perfect. All right, fantastic. Thanks, Charlie. So the interesting thing about recognition is that it's really an often overlooked component of strategy. Everybody knows recognition's important, which is why we're all here today. Yet I would wager, if I were to query your CEOs, your boards, and ask them to clearly define your organizational recognition strategy, and it's that last word that is key, we'd be met with a lot of ums. Right, because recognition is often an afterthought. If you are really to drive organizational performance, recognition must be a strategic imperative. It must be intentional, it must be structured, it must be timely, and most importantly, it must be connected to every aspect of your organizational strategy. You cannot look at leadership at recognition in isolation without understanding its connection to everything you do as an organization. When creating a recognition strategy, it's really critical to get everyone's buy-in. Listen, your teams must believe that your strategy is fair to all departments. If they're going to be motivated by it, and why have any recognition strategy if it doesn't actually motivate your people? So you need to make sure that you co-create them with them, co-create the recognition strategy with them. Unfortunately, the truth is it's often only the sales department that has anything close to a formalized strategy for recognizing performance. For other departments like accounting and IT, let's be honest, recognition's often an afterthought. When you're building your strategy by bringing your teams together to develop the strategy, you build a strong sense of ownership that's created and team development that occurs. Oh, I've got myself off top there. Development that occurs, and what you do is you start tapping into, not only the esteem level, but also, and most importantly, the belonging level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Most recognition strategy goes straight to the esteem level for the individual without recognizing the need for belonging. So if we dig into this a little further, the challenge with most recognition strategies is that they're very one-sided, and they use compensation in the forms of bonuses and pay as the primary means of recognizing employees. The issue with this is that pay is rarely predictable for all employees across all departments. People often have zero ability to predict the changes in their income year over year. And this results in a reality that the only way people can beat the cost of living increases is to leave their employers. If you do the math, it's actually far less expensive to give employees predictable tenure-based raises than it is to hire new ones. If you do the math, and this is absolutely quantifiable, your salespeople, it's typically about 120% turnover cost because you have to calculate the loss of revenue when you're looking at it. You have to look at both sides of the balance sheet, both your rev and your expenses. Other departments, like maybe accounting, it's a much lower percentage, closer to what the Gallup organization stated in the 20s. Most HR professionals will tell you it costs about 40% of an employee's wage to replace them. Well, if you just gave them a path that they understood on how they were going to beat the cost of living, you're going to produce an environment that people are motivated by, and you'll be able to retain them. And here's the rub. Compensation exists at the bottom, the baseline of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's dig into this a little bit. So looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs shows us that compensation exists at the bottom. It's the most basic of needs. It provides physiological and safety needs. That's it. It is your baseline, right? One of my favorite sayings is, you can't motivate a starving person. And once they are full, now what are you going to do? Right? And just like any pyramid, every level must be solid or the entire structure crumbles. Recognition is the exact same way. If, and I mean capital I, capital F, if compensation is strong in an organization, one cannot jump to the esteem needs, which is often associated with awards and bonuses, without focusing on the social needs of the people. We have to recognize that people are social in nature. It is a basic need of all of ours. And a strong recognition strategy leverages this social nature of people to maximize the performance of the teams. We've all heard the saying, get the right people on the bus and then figure out what seat is best for them. I'll argue that few organizational strategies are actually built around this concept. Few organizations create a pathway for people to grow and expand into new roles in other departments. Yeah, a person can be promoted, and that's awesome, but can an accountant join marketing? Well, if they have the desire and they have the raw talent and you develop a training around it, why not? See, because giving people a path within the organization to grow and develop into new roles is an act of recognizing the true value of the person, not just the job they are doing. And listen, everybody wants to feel valued for a person, right? Also, if you allow a person to train others, if you allow a marketer to train an accountant with raw talent, that is another way to align the skill sets of that marketer, right? When we train, our skills increase. right? We also grow. And doing so recognizes their value and allows them to give to other members of their team. This gives intrinsic value to the individual, and it builds strong bonds between your employees, thus supporting the development of social bonds, otherwise known as a sense of belonging. And that is an incredibly powerful element to employee performance and morale. When building your strategies for recognition, you need to have three types. All right. You need to have an individual recognition strategy. Well, it's all part of one strategy. You need to have individual recognition, you need to have peer recognition, and you need to have departmental recognition. Listen, a pat on the back from a boss, we all know, goes a very long way. I'll argue all day long that a public pat on the back from a coworker goes even further. And in using this logic, organizations need to create ways for peers to recognize peers and departments to recognize other departments. By doing this, we are beginning to tap into the higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's go back to that chart and dig in a little further. So Gallup reminds us that employees need to have a sense of belonging at work. They need to have friends. There's this really old saying in leadership that people quit bosses and stay for teams. Individual recognition, once you've gotten beyond that baseline, that taps into the esteem level. Peer and departmental recognition taps into the sense of belonging, friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection, right? That is a sense of belonging. And if that foundational element isn't strong, you do not have a strong recognition strategy. We simply cannot build a strong strategy without ensuring every single level of your pyramid is strong. Again, if your team's starving, I don't care what you do. They're not going to be motivated. But once they're all nice and full because they're not starving, well, now what are you going to do, right? You need to move beyond some of these basic things and think just a little bit differently. We must recognize the whole, right? With jumping from physiological to esteem is only going to create esteem with bonuses and awards without building social bonds. It's just going to create a fractured system. We got to recognize the whole of the employee in your recognition strategy. I mean, simply put, people are inherently social by nature. It is who we are, right? And so when you're developing your strategy, you can't go from a baseline of your basic needs all the way up to an esteem need without also focusing on your social. One of the things that really drives me crazy, and this is from a sales operations person, is that sales often has the opportunity for great bonuses and trips to Bali and other places like that. And departments like IT and accounting, man, they are lucky to get a plaque or a certificate they can hang on their wall, right? All capital A, capital L, all departments need to participate in a company-wide recognition strategy. The other thing that really drives me crazy is how few employees can even define exactly what it is they are being recognized for, right? They have zero idea what behaviors are going to drive results. Every element of your strategy must be clearly defined. Employees need to know exactly what behaviors lead to being recognized. And this needs to be explained on day one of your employees joining your organization. Your strategies must be transparent if it is to be believed and sought after. Why have a recognition strategy if nobody wants to seek it out, right? So again, you gotta get them involved in the development. It needs to be transparent. It needs to be based off of clearly defined behaviors, and everybody must know it on day one so that they have something to seek out. The other thing to really keep in mind is that not all employees even want to be promoted. Heck, there's an entire generation of employees who have zero desire to be a manager. And considering most companies do not even teach managers how to manage, I'm not surprised. If you were to walk into Barnes and Noble 30 years ago and you walked into the business section, those shelves would be full of books on how to manage employees. If you walk in there now, it's all about leadership. Leadership this, leadership that. Everybody's a leader. You know, that sounds great, but if you don't teach people how to block and tackle, you'll never teach them how to lead people to a touchdown, right? You've got to teach the basics of how to have a hard conversation, how to have a good conversation, what to do when employees are for, you have an idea they are going to be leaving your organization, right? You have to teach the basics of management before you can get anybody to be able to lead and be led. A strong recognition strategy, it allows employees to see both the promotion and the non-promotion paths within their organization. It's really key, right? Because not everybody wants to be promoted. And right now, promotion is one of the primary ways people are recognized. Oh, you're doing a great job. We're going to promote you. Okay, neat. But what if they don't want to be promoted, right? There are an entire group of people that have zero desire to do that. So you have to think beyond some of these basic things of promotions and bonuses and plaques and get a lot deeper in your strategy, right? Doing so shows the employees that they are valued for more than the current role they are in. Now, and if we want to just look at some real basic tips here, next time you give a direction at work, say please and thank you. These little words can go a very long way. And be very specific in your praise. State exactly what it is you are recognizing as exemplary. Don't say, hey, great job. Say, hey, great job working with that customer. You exemplified our mission of service. Or great job completing that programming. Now our sales department are able to hit our organizational goals, right? Help people to understand very specifically what it is you are praising so that they know what behaviors to repeat. And ask people what they think. Invite them into strategic conversations. Show them you value their thoughts, and you begin to build the foundation of psychological safety. Look, breaking bread together there is another great way to strengthen social bonds. I've always been a big fan of what I call the home culture potluck, which is when people bring their culture via food to share with others. I know this may sound basic, but it is very, very powerful. Why? Because it allows the individual to take pride in themselves and share a more intimate aspect of their lives with their coworkers. And in so doing, you're strengthening the social bonds in your organization. Next month, we're going to discuss one of my most favorite of organizational performance strategies, which is organizational communication. A recognition strategy without psychological safety will get you nowhere, which is why, as I said earlier, your recognition strategy cannot operate in isolation. It has to work in union and in harmony with your entire organizational strategy if it is going to resonate. Psychological safety is the strongest element to employee performance. Gallup puts it right at the top. Nothing matters until you've created a psychologically safe environment. Next month, we're going to dig into that topic just a little bit. But for now, a few things to think about. Be strategic in your recognition strategy. Ensure it is consistent across all departments. Don't give sales the opportunity to go on trips and give accounting a cute little certificate that they hang on their walls. All right? Give your peers the ability to recognize their peers. Give departments the ability to recognize other departments. And build training as a foundational element of recognition. Few people would ever consider training as a form of recognition. If you tell someone, hey, you're doing a great job and I'd like you to train someone else because you're really great at this, you are recognizing that employee's value. You are giving them the ability to gain intrinsically by giving to someone else. We all know that when we give, we grow. So give your employees the ability to do that. Connect that into your accountability, right? And give employees the ability to move through your organization without getting promoted so they might be able to fulfill some of these more intrinsic things. Listen, we all went to college at a time and we had no idea what we wanted to do and we grow up, right? So maybe somebody actually does, maybe one of your accountants really is a great marketer. Why not give him the ability to grow in your organization? And finally, make sure that your strategy is transparent. Everybody needs to understand it. It needs to be clearly connected to your accountability metrics, and every part of your organizational strategy needs to be understood by everybody across your departments if you're going to have this resonate, if they're going to believe in it, if they're going to be motivated by it. If you leave today remembering only one thing, make it this. Your recognition strategy must be part of an overall organizational strategy that connects with and both influences and is influenced by all the other elements of your strategy. It cannot operate in isolation. If any of the elements works in isolation, it simply does not work at all. A performance culture requires a comprehensive strategy that connects all elements of your operation. To make it work, it must be a strategic imperative that is understood and supported by everyone in your organization. I like to say, give all your people a voice and they'll be singing in unison in no time. Thank you all for your time today. What questions can I answer for you?
Why not have lots? That's all, but everybody else got it here. I mean, one thing I think you talk about is, as we've done some of this, is the idea, it's called the mattering theory, that people need to know they matter. And that what they do matters, their job matters. I always try to tell my employees, I care about the impact of the people, not the employees. Because that's, the employees, it's what they do, is not at all. You know, so you gotta try to be sensitive to all those things. So it's about, people have to know that they matter, the work matters, that they matter. And you have to remember that everybody is just like us. We all have good days, bad days, up days, down days. We all have those days. Anybody else gives crap, there's gonna be victims, you know, there's gonna be trouble if anybody else gives crap. So I think that's, you know, that's critical. I think, I think also blows up the fact that relationships matter. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, how do you do some of these things if you don't know what makes people tick? You don't know people outside of name, rank, and serial number. You know, right? With any of this kind of stuff. So remember when after the campus bought, I moved to the Mind Center. So there's about 150 people there at that time. So they have very different stories. So sorry about beating myself, but so part of what I did when I first started there, I spent 10 minutes with everybody just to get to know people. Well, people are like, first of all, they thought this guy up. Like there's some sort of hidden agenda. Some smoking mirrors or something. Wait, no, really. I get to help people. It took a while, but we got to work. Anyway, you know, it was painless because I sit down and trust it. They're like, you know, let's just do it up to. What's he wanting out of this? There's no, you know, there's no hidden agenda. Just want to get to know what makes them tick. How can you effectively manage or lead or influence, motivate, whatever it is people if you don't know what makes them tick? Oh, they have toys, they have this, you know, how was it toys, you know, that kind of stuff. That's, and it's have to be cordial. Talk about, it's funny with the basic stuff. I'm a fan, if you've never read this, you probably should. It's everything I need to know in life I learned in kindergarten. Everything that's really true. So, but in life, there's so many different ways. It talks about, pick up on glasses. That's what we said. Different things, you know, share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them. If we have a little mess, don't take things that are here, say you're sorry, wash your hands, look, or release some full milk that are good for you. Take a nap every afternoon, you know, or the older I get, the more I really get some breaks. You know, kids won't nap, you know, at this point, I'd kill for an hour nap. But it ends up with this. I think And it's also true, put things back, and it's also true, no matter how old you are, when you go out in the world, it's always best to hold hands and stay together. So it's at the point of the thing, but some of that basics, the basics, before you do fancy. Probably something pretty cool, it's called The Last Lecture. It's done by Randy Bosch. He was a professor at Carnegie Mellon out east, and he had cancer. So he did this last lecture. So, and it's really cool. It's not how I want to do that, but it's really very profound. And he talked about, that in life you got to do the basic stuff before you do fancy stuff. That's why with football, I get a football coach. They did the entire practice without even touching the ball. Why? Because you got to do the basics before you do fancy stuff. You have to learn how to block, and tackle, and all those type of things before you run all those things in place. So I think again, you got to do the basic stuff before you do the fancy stuff. I mean, stuff everything's not shut up and everybody else. There's another thing. There's another great case, and I'm not sure if they do this called Lincoln Life. It's in Cleveland. And they had a bonus structure. Everybody in the place had the same bonus structure. The CEO, line people, everybody shared equally in a profit. So it wasn't like the CEO's up here and I'm working my tail off up here and I'm lining this dude's pocket because of all my hard work. So everybody had the same bonus structure, no matter where you're at. It's a really interesting model. I haven't really looked at it in so many years, but that's just the way it was. It's, and people got paid to work hard, but the coolest part of the interview always was, what? We all share the same bonus that everybody else does. It's not like it's too at the top. It's getting rich because we're killing ourselves out here on this floor, making these deep motors. So it's a great case study about all that sort of stuff. And then, I think the psychological safety is, and I know we'll talk more about that next month, but I mean, that's the idea of real trust. I think people have to be comfortable with saying what's on their mind without fearing getting whacked upside the head. But if you don't have that sort of psychological safety or safety net, people shut up. And you know what? It's the risk of saying something versus the risk of saying nothing. The risk of saying something's too great, so I'm just going to shut up. Because person A got their head lopped off last time, so you know what? You figured out how to make the big bucks, and that's awful. I mean, because I don't believe none of us is as smart as all of us. And Jim talked about, can you have accountant and marketing, or can you have all those people work together? Yeah, why not? Have all those people, sometimes people who see things through a different lens have the best ideas. Because they see things through a different lens. I mean, I think so. It's about relationships and just people like as human beings or whatever, as people. I mean, that's what be humane to people, and because you never know. You never know what people are going through. You just don't know what's happening to people. So be kind and caring and understanding, and we all need a little grace in life. So there's some of that basic stuff. Then you can do the fancy stuff. But do the basic stuff. I think that's important. So there's my ramblings, 5, 6, 7 minutes.
Questions? I always have one. So how do you, Jim, Dr. Chipwood, I don't know the best way to describe it, but like a recognition plateau and all the different, ways on the hierarchy, right? How do you avoid, and there's nowhere else to go, right? Or you get too caught in your ways and you're just I'm just gonna use this as an example. Because I looked at Kim, the fist bump Friday, right? What happens if you find an employee that fist bump Friday just doesn't have the same impact over and over and over and over again? So how do you reach, how do you, I guess, keep it fresh, your recognition, or as you kind of, 5, 10 years of leadership at an organization, you have the same team, let's say, how do you keep it fresh, the recognition?
Well, two things. One, back to the managing. Again, it's really important to come back to some of the basics, as Charlie had mentioned earlier. So you got to understand, you have to have the most important meeting in an organization is the one-on-one. All right, and I have an entire chapter in my book about this. I believe that there is no more important meeting than the manager and the employee. Over and over again, every week, all the time, constantly meeting. And the manager's job is to develop the people, to find out what's going on, to find out what is motivating them. Listen, here's the deal. People come to work for their reasons, not yours. They are there for themselves, not for you. They're motivated to achieve their goals, not yours. If you want to get the most out of them, you've got to align their personal goals, their intrinsic goals, with your organization's goals, so that by pursuing their goals, they're pursuing the organization's goals at the same time. If you have employee that is repeatedly, it's kind of hard to hear y'all back there, but I think you said an employee who repeatedly on Friday, as an example, isn't as motivated as they are on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Did I hear that correctly?
No, I would say that the repetitive recognition, so sometimes, right, like you've got a really cool thing that works, and I just saw the person who, this is a bad example, but I'm just saying, you have it starts off the first 2 years, and it gets the team motivated, but everyone has, right, eventually it stops being the way that we need as humans to be recognized, right? We always like look for the new perk, the new compliment. If it's the same compliment over and over and over again, and it works for 2 years, and you find yourself 2.5 years in, and it's like, oh crap, no one's responding, and what's happening? So yeah, how do you keep it like fresh? Do you have to look at it every couple of years, your recognition program? How do you just keep motivating people so we don't get all caught in where it just becomes routine?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like any organizational strategy, you need to be revisiting your strategy every year, right? You can't, if you're doing tomorrow what you did yesterday, you're not preparing for the day after, right? And so this comes back to meeting with your team, finding out, listening to them. Okay, I'm getting the feeling that this doesn't have the same resonance. What will? How do we change? What do we adapt, right? That comes back to the listening to your people, involving them in the creation of this, and receiving regular feedback. One of the things we'll talk about next month is that communication strategy, where regular feedback is a part of your organizational strategy. So the only way to keep it fresh is to continually evolve as time progresses.
So I guess the follow-up is, let's say you're in one of the hierarchies in Maslow, and you as an organization can't go any higher on any of those 5 needs, but your staff still needs you to go higher. How do you approach a situation like that?
Well, at the very highest level of Maslow's hierarchy needs, people are operating for their own, like they're operating at a whole other level, right? And if they're no longer motivated operating at that level, then you got another reason. You got something else going on. It isn't as clean and cute as a simple answer. Why would anybody operating at their highest level all of a sudden no longer be motivated by operating at their highest level? Something else is going on, and you've got to find out why not. This isn't a simple answer, because nobody rocks at that level and then stops without a reason.
Really, it's a symptom of the problem, not really the problem. I think too often we see things we see are symptoms of stuff. It's not really a problem. That's why if you look at anybody's like manufacturing that Kaizen sort of stuff, if you ask why about 5 times, then you get down to the why. And I think if you've ever maybe been in meetings where you talk about the same thing over and over and over, just because you never fix the problem, you pick the symptom of the problem. You're trying to put a band-aid. It's like if people had high blood pressure, that's the problem. It's a symptom of the problem. So why do you have high blood pressure? Why did someone perform here and now they're down here? What happened? Something happened somewhere. So you got to figure out what happened. And I think he's spot on for one thing. So it's critical.
And to defend fist bump Friday,
Yeah.
I want to say that I think that is that connection. That is trying to gain that connection with an employee. Like, we're gonna go around on Fridays and he fist bumps everyone in the entire facility, to, even if he doesn't know them, he'll be like, hey, happy Friday for you. So I think it's the building of relationships. So I think that can never end, because you got to find some way to always be building relationships. That's just I take a.
That is a bad example, it's just what I looked at.
I
That's a good point, that's the icebreaker then. Yes. Like every Friday, he has the icebreaker to begin any conversation with you.
It allows everyone to know that, okay, on Friday, I know he's gonna swing by. I would like to mention this idea, or talk about this, and it'll give me the opportunity. I truly am seeing that as the time to stop by.
Some practical tips, Dr. Chipwood, could you give to an organization that hasn't currently got a program? How do you start? What's some initiative that an organization can take?
I'm sorry, it's a little challenging to hear you all. I think I said, I think I believe I heard you ask for tips for an organization that does not have a recognition strategy.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Some practical tips on how to begin.
On how to begin focus groups. So the best place to start is bringing everybody together. Starting with a whiteboard, nothing's off the table. Listen to everybody, get it, and then you know. Let's be honest. You can't just throw money around, right? Organizations have finite resources, so it has to be pretty clean. But then so you come back to accounting and finance, and you figure out what can financially work, right? And then and when you are working with the team, look at it from three ways. How do you recognize the individual? How does a peer recognize a peer? And how does a department recognize a department? I need to drive this point home. Most organizations focus purely on the individual. How do I recognize this one person, right? Well, that's really super cool. But if you're not recognizing the social aspects of people and helping them recognize each other, you're never going to get the most out of them, because most people I know will let themselves down before they'll let their partner down, right? Before they'll let the team member down. They'll do something that hurts themselves before they'll do something that hurts someone else, right? We are motivated to help others that are friends, people we believe in, that kind of thing. So I really need to drive home the point that if your organization does not have a peer-to-peer recognition strategy, you're never going to get the most out of your people, because we are social in nature. So where to start? Focus groups. Where to go from there? Meeting with finance to figure out what is realistic. And then developing a strategy that includes all three elements: peer-to-peer, departmental, and individual. And when we go to peer-to-peer, like a neat thing to do, one organization I worked at, we gave, y'all know that analogy of the little boy throwing starfish in the sand? There's a beach full of starfish, and a little boy is chucking starfish in the ocean over and over again. And this man comes by and says, "Dude, you got a beach full of starfish, kid. What are you doing? You're wasting your time." Little kid picks up a starfish, chucks it in the ocean, looks the man in the eye and goes, "Well, I just made a difference to that one, didn't I?" Right. And so one organization I did, we used that analogy, and we gave peers were able to give little starfish that we bought at Successories. If you guys remember that organization, they gave starfish to each other. So it's just a way to say, hey, you made a difference to me. I couldn't have got my work done without you. That is a really strong way to allow peers to recognize other peers. An organization I'm working with right now, they give, they've got these little, kind of like that coin you gave, Charlie, but they're little cards that they give. And when a peer recognizes another peer, it comes with a $25, a Visa gift card or something like that, but it doesn't have to be monetary. Simply giving a peer the ability to recognize a fellow peer is very strong. You can use that same logic for the departmental as well. Does that help you? Would you like me to expand upon that more, or how do you feel on that?
So those were very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think, Jim, how do you deal with, if we go down the kind of dynamic a little bit? Sometimes in life, we got the majority of the people headed right now. We always have those gloomy Gus's and Debbie Downers, walk through what's Saturday Night Live, those people like that. How do you try to deal with those folks? Because you've got, you got a lot of folks over here, but you got these other people kind of pulling the other way and womp. We've been there, we've done that, doesn't work. you know, that Monday to Friday sort of dying sort of person. I didn't try to deal with those in an otherwise strong culture, do you think?
Open and honest, transparent communication and a one-on-one meeting between the manager and that employee, right? You have to really understand why. You've got to talk to the person. Why do you come into this office and bring everybody down? What is going on with you that makes you walk into this office down and unmotivated? And why do you think that it's okay that you allow your negative emotions and energy to bring everybody else down around you? Right? There could be a good reason. This person may be struggling pretty badly. If they're not, if it's just their personality, well, then one of two things. Either A, the entire team knows that that's just what was the guy from Winnie the Pooh? Maybe just an Eeyore, right? Maybe they're just an Eeyore and it's who they are. And you know, Winnie loved Eeyore. Everybody did, right? Um, or you got to be willing to cut the bad apple from the team, right? There's also that. Like I pride myself in retaining employees. If I have to fire an employee, I believe it's a failure on my part. I did not manage the situation properly. Having said that, sometimes you got a bad apple and it's just going to kill the entire tree. So like, again, number one, find out why. Find out what's going on with this person, what's bringing them in to make them act this way. Help them to understand how their behavior is affecting everybody else. If that's just this person's personality, if they're just an Eeyore, they don't mean to negatively affect others. It's just how they approach everything. Then maybe the entire team just accepts that they're Eeyore and that's what it is. Or lastly, say, I'm sorry, but your negative personality is taking everybody down with you, and I got a team to lead, and you can't be on it, right? So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people do have to be successful elsewhere. I mean,
Yeah.
once in a while, you need to be successful elsewhere. I'm gonna free up your future.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just comes in. You do what you do, but sometimes the people just are going to, you can't risk the whole for those occasional bad habits. I just, the way that it is, I think sometimes, but. So one thing you talk about the fist pump. So one thing I've gone back to is before when my meetings start, everybody has to say one good thing that happened since last time we met. And people are really, you should see their face lights up and we did yesterday, they were like, well, I'm gonna go first. I mean, it's amazing how people, it's just cool. It's just fun little stuff. And some guy had screwed up his leg and yesterday was the first day he didn't have to have a brace on his leg. But he smiled, it's that kind of stuff. It's really some positive energy stuff. But yeah, sometimes I did that. Then I've gone back to that. There was like 10 people. They took 5 minutes, just 30 seconds is what people think. The only rule is you can't pass. You can give more than one if you want, but you can't pass. Passing is not an option. But I haven't had many people pass. They've always come up with something.
Charlie, I love that example. What you're doing there is you are building social bonds by allowing people to share at a personal level. I always say every meeting needs to be both qualitative and quantitative. And that's a really good example of developing social bonds with qualitative participation.
I mean, I'm an org behavior guy by nature, so I'm concerned about people and all, how they are and how they feel and, that kind of stuff. But but if you just look at their face, it was like people, here comes me, it was like, but you just lit up because they give them a chance to talk about something that was, one guy he went on his vacation to Mongolia. So he brought a picture that he had of him riding a bike in Mongolia. Now we remember, you just have your people a chance to talk about those stuff. But yeah, it goes, let me go get a picture. So he went and got a picture of him riding a bike in Mongolia. But I didn't give him a chance to talk about Mongolia. So, but it's just those the human touch things sometimes, especially I think if you're dealing in times of great stress and strain and organizational change and all those sort of things, let's just so relax. Like in July, I didn't schedule any meetings with anybody in July. I'm gonna give you a chance to recover, relax, do what you need to do, all that kind of stuff. So we had like, we've heard like no shave November, this was like no meeting July. This is what we had. We didn't make it, and people were like, holy mackerel, how cool was it? I didn't have to have. It was good for everybody in July, but we didn't have any meetings at all, nothing scheduled in July, just let people do their stuff, take some time off, do whatever they want to do. You know, just re-energize and refocus and, you know, because now that August is back, of course, things pick up a little bit, but they were really appreciative of the chance. They were like, it was really nice, because that's a whole different, you know, if you worked on it was a whole different approach, but why not? Take the month, and there's nothing gonna happen in the summer that's generally that pressing. But it can't wait a little bit, so people are appreciative. It's just you don't have to, I think, Jim, you don't have to break the bank to do cool stuff. I mean, I've read surveys, the most sought after non-monetary thing people look for in organization is an honest and genuine thank you. That's the most, it means the most, take out this monetary other stuff. It's just an honest and genuine thank you, and I appreciate it. Doesn't would cost a minute. But results are huge, so let's just keep the basics in mind first before you start to do that basic stuff. So, anyway, anyone else, any observations, emotional outbursts?
Anyone online, feel free to put something in the chat in our final minutes if you have anything to add or want to ask. And if not, that's okay too.
We will call people. Yeah. So Jim, thanks. I think this is really good. Some of it's real good. I love this stuff about just trying to keep stuff real. I think that's really important in life, is we keep stuff real and manageable and makes sense. Let's connect common sense to common practice a little bit more in life. I think we're better off. But so Jim would always next want to talk about communication and strategies, and you know, I think I found over the years as a leader, you cannot not communicate. Everything you do and say communicates values. Things you don't say or don't do communicate values. So I think will be really interesting, and that psychological safety is really important. So Jim, thank you. I appreciate you and all your insights, and you're a good man, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.